Hello everyone, and welcome to Biopedia. Bees are insects in the clade Anthiophilia, and they are technically vegetarian wasps. There are over 250 species in the UK, 24 of which are bumblebee species and the rest comprising solitary bees. However, their decline is also discussed in modern news outlets. So, what exactly are the causes of this decline, and can we uncover any nuance in the literature? That's what I aim to introduce today. First off, declines aren't a phenomenon which are restricted solely to bees. In fact, it's something related to bugs in general. There's a scientific term called the windshield phenomenon, which recognizes that in the past, people used to get loads of bugs on their windshields. This isn't so much the case anymore and is a symptom of a decline. In fact, there is a station monitored by the Crefeld Entomological Society which has witnessed an 80% drop between 1989 and 2013. The Woodland Trust notes that, in the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, bees are markedly declining. There are several causes highlighted by this organisation which play a part in these observed declines. Our discussion will lead us to talk about climate change, loss of habitat, disease, and invasive species. We discussed climate change and its technical definition very recently on this show, in episode 77. To quote myself from this episode, this is the phenomenon, as defined by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, or IPCC, of statistically significant changes in the average or the variation in factors in the climate. These changes stick around for decades or longer. A previous prediction for the end of the century is that there will be a rise of 1.5 to 2 degrees compared to pre-industrial baselines. However, this is an outdated estimate, given that the Climate Action Tracker has predicted an increase of 2.7 degrees Celsius by 2100 and a temperature increase which carries on post-2100 based on our contemporary action in terms of meeting climate goals. In the context of bees, this phenomenon is relevant because flowers might bloom early or late, meaning that the life cycles of flowers and bees wouldn't line up properly. This phenomenon generally is known as phenological mismatch, and it basically means that, in terms of timing of parts of the life cycle, rates change differently for different species. Second of all, we have loss of habitat. There has been a 97% drop in fields of wildflowers in the United Kingdom since the 1930s. A lot of the plants that are left over are having pesticides and herbicides applied to them. This means that bees are either being poisoned by these chemicals or are going hungry because of a lack of food. Then there's diseases to consider. There are 5 viral honeybee diseases which have been detected in bumblebees in the wild. For example, the movement of honeybees between nations meant that the varroa mite arrived in the UK in the 1990s. We don't know if these diseases have spread to solitary bees. To connect this to a wider issue, the Microsporidium Nosema serranae has also been speculated to be a causative agent behind colony collapse disorder. This is an inexplicable decrease in the number of colonies of the honeybee Apis mellifera noted in the context of the USA in a 2009 paper published in PLOS 1. Finally, we have to talk about the potential impact of invasive species. There is a species called the Asian hornet which has had catastrophic impacts in French bees in the wild, according to the Woodland Trust. This hornet species has its origin in the region of the world around China, Indonesia, and India. It was spotted outside China for the first time in 2003, and was noticed in the Channel Islands in 2016. At least in the context of Jersey and the Channel Islands, it is noted as something which could have an impact on honey making and pollinating. All of this said, there is an alternative viewpoint to discuss, which I first did in 2 blog posts on the Biopedia website. I suppose that I'm now sort of adapting these to an audio format. Anyway, a 2015 paper by Rader et al. Pointed out that pollinators which are not bees comprise 39% of visits to flowers. This shows that, although it would be an issue if bees were to decline, it would not mean that 100% of visits would be gone. Moreover, this study acknowledges that it does not even consider non-insects, meaning the bee percentage of the pie could be even smaller. Admittedly, this study had a worldwide focus, and we have been focusing on the UK so far. However, the point generally made in this paper is that the bees do not make up as large a proportion of pollination services as people might think. A second paper from 2005 does not even really think there is a crisis ongoing in terms of pollination. Although I have only ever been able to access the abstract of this paper, it makes the point that most crops we would consider essential, such as wheat, are pollinated by the wind. Moreover, the paper's author Ghazoul stated that a lot of the crop plants that need bee pollination are found in smaller scale growing locations which have an ecosystem which probably maintains pollination populations in good health. Finally, the paper mentions that the idea of a bee pollinator crisis seems to be predominantly fueled by honeybee declines in Northern America and falling numbers of bumblebees and butterflies in Europe. Therefore, we need to monitor pollination, but Ghazoul is of the opinion that acting because of an idea of pollination going downhill might be premature. So, there we have it. That's an introduction to the bee decline, as well as some viewpoints which I've previously examined about pollination and its status. Until next time, thank you all for listening. Feel free to get in touch at the show's email address for any questions, comments, or topic suggestions for future episodes. Until next time, have a great week, everyone.